successful. You're on mute.
Yeah, so first Anushika and then me, right? Yeah, okay. Cool.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live session at InsideIIM. My name is Charul, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming three CAT toppers who are here to share their CAT preparation journey and everything that helped them in achieving their dream percentiles. Well, this session is even more special as it's part of the Women's Month campaign that we are running at InsideIIM called Celebrating Her. So, thank you so much for joining me, Anushka, Komal, and Anushika. We look forward to hearing your stories. Well, before we delve into the questions, why don't you all say a quick hello to our audience and tell us something about your background? Let's start with you, Komal.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for inviting me to the Women's Special episode. It's really pleasure to be here. Talking about myself, I completed my engineering and post that I have worked with Accenture for 3.5 years. After that, I pursued internship at Barclays, and now I'm studying at IIM Bangalore. This summers, I would be interning with AWS.
That's awesome. Thank you. What about you, Anushika?
Yeah, hi. So I'm from Kanpur and I am a BSc graduate. I have 14 months work experience in journalism as a content writer as well as a journalist. I joined FMS Delhi after 2 CAT attempts, and this summers I'll be joining Reckitt for my summer internship. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to knowing your story. What about you, Anushka?
Hi, so yeah, I completed my BCom honors from St. Xavier's College, Kolkata in 2021. So, and then I joined IIM Calcutta as a fresher. So for my summers, I'll be working with Credit Suisse.
That's awesome. Thank you. So let's start now. Well, before getting into the technical questions, I'm intrigued to know what was your motivation behind CAT preparation, and basically why did you decide to pursue an MBA in the first place? Let's start with Komal.
So as I said that I was working with Accenture, I was already working with technology company, but still working in a project, it was I had the narrow view of what's going on in the broadly in the project. So
Right.
I wanted to know that how things function. Like when I used to work with my manager, I used to see that he used to handle many departments and many aspects of project. So that kind of intrigued me, and that's my motivation to pursue MBA.
That's awesome. What about you, Anushika?
So as I told you, I was working as a journalist. So my work majorly involved interviewing a lot of women who made a change. Now, among those women were a lot of women entrepreneurs, getting to know their story, them making a change in the society. I knew that, okay, this is something that I really want to do. And management was something that I really wanted to take up as a career because I wanted to learn how it all actually works. So I knew that MBA is one thing that I can go ahead with, and that was my initial motivation, to be honest, to get into it. But then later on, I also got into digital marketing and stuff, and that is what motivated me to get into marketing as a career. So it all, in a combined way, motivated me to go for MBA.
Awesome. So personally, I'm glad that I'm finally sitting on the other side of the table interviewing you like you have been doing during your work. So yeah. What about you, Anushka?
So in my case, I think as a fresher, I had not had any experience in the corporate world. But for some reason, I felt that after my bachelor's, I mean, the kind of roles I wanted to take up, it would require a higher level of specialization. So that's why I thought, I mean, I decided to give CAT in my last year of undergraduation, and things surprisingly turned out well. So yeah, so that's why I'm here.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, guys, I want to know since we have this query right now, all the aspirants are asking this. We are almost in the last week of March, and from here on, we have like good 7.5 to 8 months for CAT. So, how do you think aspirants should chart out their plan till November? Any of you can take it up. Komal, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the one thing that I have seen when I was preparing along with my batchmates and all the people who were preparing for CAT, the one thing that I saw that everyone started giving mocks very late. People started giving mocks from August, September, which according to me is very late. What students can do who are starting their preparation now is they can take up mock now, so that it will help them to know what are their strengths, what are their weak areas, what they need to improve. Because CAT is not an exam for which, if you go into the preparation details, your preparation will never be complete. Your preparation will always be oh ये छूट गया वो छूट गया कोई ना कोई टॉपिक छूट जाएगा. So to cover up for that, I think that the giving mock now to understand your strength and weak zones will help a lot, so that you will not end up wasting more time on your strengths and you will invest a lot of time in your weaknesses. So this can be the first step of students who will be preparing for CAT this year.
That helps. Thank you. Like Anushika, I would want to ask specifically, like since we have 8 months, so how can an aspirant divide this period?
Actually, first of all, I would like to add on to what Komal said, because one thing very rightly pointed out was mocks, but the other thing is also consistency. I have been in talk with a lot of students who are preparing for CAT, and one thing that most of them would say is that we have a lot of time. So, maybe I mean, CAT is not one of those exams where we start studying like a week before. It's an exam of consistency. It's an exam of practice. So I think this is the right time to begin if you haven't already. As far as division is concerned, I think that you have to focus on all the 3 sections equally, because see, there will be a time later in the preparation stage where you'll have to figure out that which is your strongest section. But right now you have to focus on contributing your time to each and every section equally, because there will be a lot of things that you do not know. So first of all, what I did was, when I started preparing, I first of all initially invested my first month just in understanding what the exam is actually about, how all the 3 sections work. For example, if we talk about VRC, we have the RCs, we have the verbal section. Now, verbal section is something that you cannot really jump into unless and until you understand what the core idea of RCs are, how RCs actually work. So first of all, I focused on working out with RCs. Then second, if we talk about LRDI, again, how do you actually proceed with the passage? You do not really jump into the tougher ones. You first understand the basics, the core concepts. And similarly with QA, like there was certain material that we used to follow, which used to be very simple, the basics, the root of each and every problem. So yeah, I divided it like that. And then maybe, from the next month, or maybe just invest 1 or 2 months in that. And from the 3rd month, you can start actually practicing mocks. Because as far as I remember, during my preparation journey, the mocks were released in June, in the first week of June. So at least for now, when you do not have mocks, focus on focus on practicing and solving a lot of questions. That is what I would suggest.
Thank you. So Anushka, added to what Anushika and Komal just said, what do you think is a correct time frame, like for concept building, taking mock tests and sections? So like how should an aspirant spread this? Should I would you advise taking 2 to 3 months initially for concept building and then moving on from there?
So I think firstly, I'd just like to point out, adding on to what Komal and Anushka have already said. But I think giving mocks, it has a lot of purposes, right? It's not just about trying to understand what you're good at. It's not just about trying to, practice things, but it's also about trying to create a question bank almost that you can use in the last few stages of your preparation to revise. So I think that is something that really helped me. So like Komal mentioned, I mean, for myself, I started my mocks right about now, I guess, in 2020. So yeah, around March. So I did not take those mocks in the sense that I wanted to score very well or anything of that sort, but my prime agenda was to try and understand the variety of questions that can be thrown at me. So what I started doing was I started making a repository of questions for both quantitative aptitude and LRDI. And by the end of it, especially for LRDI, I think I had a very good set of questions, and which helped me kind of brush up all my concepts. Because LRDI is something, I mean, you're never going to find the perfect question bank for that. So I think whenever I came across any, very typical set in any kind of mock, I would kind of jot down what the question was, how I approached it, or maybe where I went wrong and how I should have gone about it. So that is one thing. So as far as you asked about spreading out the preparation and whether there should be certain months for getting your concepts cleared, I think getting your concepts cleared is a very dynamic process. So allotting a specific time for it might or might not work for everybody. So in my opinion, at least this is what worked for me. I did not really allocate time for it, but more importantly, I allocated time for it throughout my period. So I didn't stop building my concepts. I didn't stop working on them. So that was something I carried on till the end alongside my mocks and other maybe, sectional tests or whatever. So I think that is something you could, students could kind of practice, that you don't have to ensure that, okay, I have 2-3 months and I have to know every CAT concept that there possibly is. It's probably not going to happen because, right, it's not a finite syllabus. But what you can do is definitely use those maybe 1 or 2 months to get the major groundwork done. But don't believe that you're done with everything. Be open to kind of developing those concepts even later on while you're doing the other aspects of the preparation.
Right. So, like, as all three of you are talking about the preparation phase, most people suggest that aspirants should take a mock test when they begin their preparation just to test the waters. So, did you all follow the same advice as well, or was there something else that you did differently? Komal, what was your strategy when you started off?
As I mentioned that I attempted a mock to know what my strengths and weaknesses are and to which section I should focus more. Then, as you mentioned that there was a time frame till 8 months are there.
Right.
So I allotted, as Anushka rightly pointed out, that the concept building has to, it will go on for a long period of time. It will go on even till CAT day. So first initial 2 months, we can focus on building the basic concepts that are needed. And then probably we can start giving regular mocks. By regular, I don't mean daily mocks. We can give mocks in one mock in two mocks in week or two will also work. So if we talk about section wise, then my strategy was different for VARC or DILR and for quant. For VARC, but throughout the CAT, I believe that even in VARC, logic was tested more as more than English. Test of VRC was not the test of English. It was test of how logically you can think and arrive at the answer. So for VARC, what I did was I practiced how to eliminate options to get the right answer. This was my strategy for VARC, which I developed through practice and through mocks. And then for DILR, what I use DILR practice to know what kind of sets I can solve quickly, so that in mocks and even in exams, I will be able to pick correct questions to solve. Because CAT is an exam wherein you don't have to solve every question. You have to solve questions that are your strengths. At least in the first round, you have to solve the questions that are your strengths. For quant, what I did was I solved quant in 2 phases. The first round was in first round I solved all the questions that were very easy, and that were very easy for me and that I could solve in less than a minute. For second round, I solved the other remaining questions of the quant. So this ensured that I was able to solve maximum questions.
Thank you so much. That helps. Anushka and Anushika, would you like to add something to that? Did you take a mock when you started preparation?
So,
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I basically, even I was told the same thing, right? That you should take one diagnostic mock to kind of understand where you stand. But I don't think it had any kind of major impact because when you just give one mock, there are a lot of factors that could affect the scores, right? So you never, I mean, it could be the kind of questions, the passages that were there, the kind of sets that were there. Maybe, you were lucky and you got sets you were comfortable with. So I mean, the results could be quite misleading if you could think of it that way. So it does help in the sense you will be more familiar with how, the whole structure is, the kind of questions you can expect. But I don't think you should use the, scores or the results of that diagnostic mock as, the entire foundation of your preparation, because there could be a lot of things that you probably will miss out. But even though I did give it, I just used it to kind of understand that, okay, so there are 3 sections and this is how, the pattern of question flows. This is how it feels to sit in a timed environment and, answer those kind of questions. Like VRC was my strength. And like Komal had mentioned, even I did the whole process of elimination as my major strategy. So that is something, again, which I figured out in the later stages and I did not use in my first mock. So that definitely negatively impacted my score. And then once I figured out that, this is a good strategy for me, my scores went up drastically. So you should just kind of use it to accustom yourself to the environment, test taking environment. But yeah, that's pretty much about it.
That's great. Thank you. Anushika, you were willing to say something?
So I feel, all of this depends on what kind of a person you are. I mean, the entire preparation strategy differs from person to person, because especially for me, I am someone who feels really anxious if I'm not performing well. So I knew that, if I'm sitting in a mock where I do not even know what concepts I'm going to use or how do I have to approach the questions, there is a very high chance that I'll not perform well. So that is why before attempting my first mock, I first went through some past CAT papers to understand what kind of questions are there, how many questions are there, preparing an initial strategy as to how I can approach the test. And then I wrote my first CAT mock after, somehow preparing for like a month, because then I at least knew that what are the basic concepts that I have to keep in hand so as to answer certain questions. Now, how this helps is because even for that first mock, I believe that when you're analyzing it, at least you'll be able to understand that what were the gaps, as in what you expected, what you had planned for, and how it didn't work out. So that was my strategy. And again, for VRC, same as Komal and Anushka, I didn't use the elimination strategy, but later on, that went out to be my strongest section, and elimination strategy is the best for that.
Then what was your strategy if not elimination?
I just read the
VRC?
I just read the passage. I was focusing more on, finding the right answer. Whereas VRC, I feel, is more about finding the wrong answers, because you have to just eliminate them. There is a very high chance that there might be 2 right answers, but you have to find an answer which is more right, to be precise. And that is what VRC is. But we didn't know it initially when we were approaching the first mock.
Right.
So that is how you learn it gradually, I believe. But yeah, I wrote it. And again, one thing I would like to point out is that if you are writing your first mock without any preparation, and if fortunately you score well, there is something inside your brain that tells you that, yeah, I'll be able to do it. It's easy. So somehow it also negatively affects your preparation.
Right.
So I would really not recommend doing that until and unless you're sort of sure that, yeah, I can now go ahead with it.
So obviously this brings me back to what Komal just said in the beginning, that VRC is about logic and not English per se. So yeah. Okay, so moving ahead, I would like to know, amongst the 3 sections, what was your strength area and how did you process the sections in which you were a little weak? Let's start again with Komal.
So VRC was, initially it was not my strong area, but later on I started getting good marks and I was able to, as I said, that I followed that logically what can be the correct answer and how can we eliminate options from the passages. So it was actually later on my strength area. And as Anushika said that initially we were focused on finding the correct answer, but then I changed my strategy wherein I used to understand the passage and then attempt the questions and then eliminate it. Quant was it was not my weak area, but I was not following the right strategy initially, and it was very later in my stages of preparation. It was very late that I realized that I should go with 2-round strategy. In first round, I should kind of solve all the questions that are easy, or I used to call them low-hanging fruits. So initially, we can have the low-hanging fruits and score well, and then go for second round. So I followed this strategy later. So it kind of affected my score initially, but later on it kind of, I was doing well in that as well.
That's awesome. Thank you. What about you, Anushika?
So I come from a vernacular medium background. So English was, anyway, VRC was something that I used to be afraid of a lot. So I still remember my first VRC score was 42 percentile.
Okay.
And again, I was not really that great at LRDI or QA. So initially I was not good at any of these sections. But yes, for VRC, I remember regular reading helped a lot. I mean, I still remember I used to read a diverse set of articles, like 4 or 5 articles in a day initially. And then, deciding that dividing the section is very important, I feel, because there is this RC and then you have the verbal section. I tried different strategies. Like first I used to solve the verbal section and then I used to go on to RCs. Then later I first started solving RCs and then I used to jump onto the verbal section, because I still remember we used to have around 10 questions in the verbal section. And so it was a lot easy if you set certain time limit for that I have to solve these 10 questions within 10 to 15 minutes. So then remaining 45 minutes can be set up for RCs. But yeah, you have to keep playing with the different strategies that work for you, because at the end on the D-Day, I ended up solving RCs first and then the verbal section. So as it was given in the question paper. Then talking about the RCs again, as we talked, elimination strategy works the best. But yes, you also have to be conscious about which type of passage you are comfortable with. For example, for me, I was not very much comfortable with the finance passages. So I used to leave it for the end whenever I used to get it. But again, if you're not comfortable with, I would suggest that still leave somewhat time, because somehow there are certain times when these passages are really easy. So if you leave them that, I am not comfortable with this passage, that might not really work out in your favor. And then talking about the verbal section, the summary questions were those were very much similar to the RCs. So solving RCs helped me a lot. Then there were certain materials that we used to solve. For example, there was an RC book I used to follow. So that, apart from the mocks where we had a timed environment, I also used to solve RCs where I didn't really set any time limit for myself. So that I can just focus on the logic as to what logic is really going on behind choosing the answers. And this honestly helped a lot.
Yeah. So that was really insightful. What about you, Anushka?
So I think for me, it was the opposite case. VRC was always my strength right from the start. So I knew that I could cut myself some slack, for doing so much of VRC. So I didn't exactly follow the typical regimen of, reading articles and doing a consistent set of RCs every day, because I knew that I can kind of manage that. But I did definitely give a lot of sectionals and mocks, because at the end of the day, like we've already discussed, it's not about English, it's about logic. So to get a hang of that, yes. But I think this time that I saved from not focusing so much on VRC, I had to invest in my other weaker sections, which was primarily QA. And as a non-engineer, I think, and as somebody who's never really liked math, so QA was definitely a very, very big challenge for me. So I think from the starting, my first strategy was just to get my concepts cleared, because unless and until I have my concept sorted, I cannot identify questions which I should be solving and the ones I shouldn't be solving. So I think in the beginning, I really struggled a lot, and it was very difficult to kind of understand whether this is a question that I should be even attempting in the first place. So definitely, which is why it affected my scores. But towards the end, I wouldn't say there was like drastic improvement. I did not become a QA genius. But what did happen is that I became better at understanding what I can handle and what I can't. And that's exactly the strategy I used on the actual day of CAT, because we had a slightly tricky QA section. So I knew that since this is not exactly my top strength area, what I am going to focus on is what I can handle. So, and I think in QA also, even though people mostly say it's for DILR, where, your accuracy is more important than your attempts. But I think for somebody, if you feel that you're not the best at QA, I think the same logic can apply here as well. Your accuracy matters more than attempts. So, even if you're just getting 10 to 12 questions correct, you're going to get a very decent percentile. So there's no need to really, pressure yourself into attempting a larger number of questions, because I used to do that initially. I saw my friends attempting, let's say 20 odd questions, and I used to feel, why am I still stuck at 10? But I realized that that strategy won't work for me, because I function in a different manner. So, which is why I think I pivoted to, going for lesser questions, maybe push it till 15 at max, but getting majority of them correct. And that definitely helped my score stabilize a little bit towards the end.
That's awesome. So, like exactly, you mentioned about the non-engineer part. My question is related to that. We generally hear that engineers have an upper edge in this test. And since we have people from both engineering and non-engineering backgrounds today, so I'd like to know your opinion on this. So do you basically agree on this notion? Komal, what is your stand?
I really don't think so that engineers have upper edge in this as compared to non-engineers, because uh, uh, as non-engineers, like it as I said, that it depends on logic. This whole exam of CAT is dependent on logic, as Anushka mentioned, that accuracy matters. I'm of the opinion that accuracy matters more than attempts in all the sections of the CAT. So I don't think engineers have upper edge. I agree that they are in touch with concepts of quant, but if you see the syllabus of quant, it is not some rocket science, or it is not the things that have been taught in engineering, because engineering maths was very different than what CAT is. So I don't think that engineers have upper edge. It's I think it's all about practice. The more you practice, the more you will get used to the kind of questions that are asked.
Anushka and Anushika, what is your opinion from the non-engineers tribe, so to say? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I am a non-engineer too, and I totally agree with what Komal said, because most of my engineer friends used to struggle with VARC. So even if they have an upper edge, which was not really the case. I mean, we say that CAT is all about practicing and about consistent efforts. So I feel, during July and August, if you have been practicing consistently, both of you, be it a non-engineer or an engineer, you are at similar levels. So I don't really think that engineers have an upper edge.
Anushka, do you have something to add to this?
I think something similar. I mean, I understand the point. I mean, I understand where people are coming from when, they say that, okay, maybe it's easier for engineers, or it's like QA is easier for them, VRC is easier for non-engineers. But I think at the end of the day, the only advantage your background could give you is that maybe you're better at, let's say, grasping certain concepts. But that is never enough. You're going to have
Right.
to polish those concepts through practice. So if you think that, okay, I'm a non-engineer, so already better than engineers at VRC, and hence I choose to entirely ignore it, that's not a good idea, because I knew a lot of friends who kind of made that mistake, and then they did suffer towards the end, because they thought that, okay, we are good at English, we can write, we can speak, so this shouldn't be much of a problem. But that didn't work out. And I think similar goes for engineers as well. I mean, it might be easier for them to grasp the concepts, but even they have to kind of master the art of, picking the right questions, timing themselves, and ensuring that, they get making the most of those 40 minutes or 60 minutes in the paper. So it doesn't have an explicit advantage per se. It just kind of might give you a little bit of a head start, but it's up to you how you kind of, capitalize on that.
Right. So, Anushka and Anushika, I want to know this specifically from you both. How can non-engineers and people who have not been in touch with math and quant start their preparation and improve their grip over the concepts?
Okay, so I would like to go ahead. First of all, I still remember when I started my preparation for CAT, it was already 14 months when I had graduated. And again, all those 3 years of BSc didn't really include maths. So I was totally out of touch when it comes to quant. So the first step was for me that I have to brush up my concepts, as in even the basic concepts. When you talk about algebra, when you talk about geometry, you have to realize that, there are certain theorems that you do not even remember. You might have solved them in like 9th or 10th class, but you do not remember because you're out of touch. So I used certain books. I mean, Arun Sharma was one of those books that really helped me a lot, because they have given everything in a very basic format. So even if you are completely out of touch of cons, you will be able to handle those questions well. And then obviously, once you have solved that book, and simultaneously you also keep on solving other materials like some time or IMS, you can further then go on to solving sectionals, like a lot of sectionals, not just one or two, a lot of sectionals. I still remember, if I'm writing 2 mocks in a week, I would solve at least 3 sectionals in a week, so that it would be like sort of similar to 5 sectionals in a week. So that helped a lot in quant. And but then again, I still remember it was one of the sections where I was the weakest. That was my weakest section, because again, there hasn't been even a single mock or a sectional where I have solved more than 16 questions in quant. So I realized that, okay, accuracy is something that where I have to focus in this section at least, because I know that I'm not good at this section. So I maintained a target that, first of all, the round approach, what we call it basically. First of all, I would just go through all the 34 questions. Basically, at the end of the day, on the D-Day, we had 26 questions. So I went through all the 26 questions, picked up questions which were either similar or which I thought that I have at least come across once before. Then I solved that. And then in the second round, again, certain other questions that I feel that I can solve, and so on. So this helped me a lot in QA.
That's awesome. Anushka?
Yeah. So I think in my case, as a non-engineer, I mean, for QA, I definitely, what essentially happened was that since I was doing BCom, I was aware of like basic math and everything, but I think I was wrong because CAT, when you start preparing for QA, you realize that it's not the concepts that are difficult, but it's your ability to look at questions from a different perspective. Because I mean, we knew what time, speed, and distance was. We knew what ratio and proportions were. But I think when I initially set out with my QA prep, I was doing it in a very traditional approach, the what you would rather call a textbook approach, and that really was not helping because it's something I already knew. So I was just fooling myself to believe that I know this. But once I started giving more mocks and sections, I realized it's not about knowing the topic and knowing the formula. It's about knowing when to apply something and how to approach a particular question. So then I started taking small steps, and I basically tried to keep a quota of solving a certain number of questions from every topic, especially the ones I was having trouble with. So it wasn't that I was sitting and trying to mug up formulae or going through my notes, but it was more of trying to understand what kind of questions should be approached in a particular manner. And I think there was a question regarding how to start for VARC. So a lot of my friends face difficulty with that because VRC can come off as very monotonous and boring in the beginning. But I think the best way is to kind of understand. I mean, you have to be comfortable with reading and just comfortable with understanding things. So because you can't apply logic until and unless you comprehend something. So you might not like all kinds of passages, but maybe you can try and pick out certain passages you do enjoy reading, and try and look at think of what kind of questions could be framed from that, how you would approach those questions. And even if it doesn't have to be a cat passage, it could be a article in the newspaper, an editorial, or anything you just found, a blog or something. But I think that is something I used to do sometimes in when I was free. Like if I'm reading something, I would try to analyze it from that cat perspective. Okay, if this was a cat passage, what kind of questions could I possibly be asked? And if this is the question, how will I analyze it? So that is something you could do. At least take small steps, try to make a little bit of a routine that you're going to read X amount of articles or things every day. Because if you're not if it's not something you're very fond of, you're going to have to work on building that habit. So that does require discipline and consistency, but it definitely pays off. So yeah.
That really helps. Thank you. So, I mean, moving ahead, let's talk about the most important part of the CAT preparation, which is, of course, mock taking. So, I would like to know, what did you do between two consecutive mocks to improve? How did you rank your performance in two consecutive mocks specifically? Komal, let's start with you.
Yeah. So as I said that my strategy was to take at least two mocks and not more than three mocks in a week. And between two mocks, what I used to do is I used to analyze mocks very thoroughly, question by question. I used to analyze every question, why I selected particular option, why it was right if it was right, why it was wrong if it was wrong. And so this was done for all the sections for every questions. So I used to analyze it section by section. So in one sitting, I think it was approximately 2 hours. I used to take 2 hours to approximately 2 hours to analyze one section. There was also mock tests also have the dashboard kind of thing, wherein they give all the analytics related to accuracy or the percentage of questions that are right. And it is also that section wise, like for in VARC, separate accuracy was given for VA and RC. So I used to focus on increasing my accuracy in next test. And even if I was able to improve 1% from my previous test, that was very big improvement for me. So initially I used to analyze section wise, and in one sitting I used to analyze one section. I used to analyze all the questions specific to different sections. Like for VA, as Anushika mentioned, that I used to try different strategies, solving RC first and then VA first, until August, I think August end, I had finalized my strategy that I would be solving RC first and then I would be solving VA. Also, I used to analyze the time that I took to solve a particular passage or particular set of DIL or a particular con question. What type of questions are there for which I'm taking greater than 1 minute for quant, or for DILR greater than 10 minutes. So this is the kind of analysis that I used to do. It was based on accuracy, percentage of questions I was getting right, based on timings that I allotted to particular section, in which question I kind of exceeded the time. And yeah, these were the basic checks that initially I had while I was solving mocks. Later, when I started improving on these parameters, I focused on, I continued this strategy till end, that I used to give mock, and until and unless I analyze complete mock, I never attempted another mock. So I wanted to, yeah, for that I also maintained one diary in which I used to write in general what can be the points that I am going wrong and I should improve on, what say subjects or what concepts are there which I should improve. So all these, I was keeping track of all these in my small diary. It also contained all the quant formulas which I used to revise on timely basis. So this was roughly what I used to do between two mocks. And yeah, after August, I kind of started giving 3 mocks at least in a week.
Thank you for being so precise with the entire plan. Thank you so much. What about you, Anushika?
So I guess Komal has covered everything. In fact, the diary part, this is where my initial preparation of 1 month came into being, because I used to maintain a sheet where I would write all the quant formulas, especially the shortcuts, because they are very useful. So I would write all the shortcuts on those sheet. But then when you talk about VRC, many of the times what happens is there are certain questions like what was the tone of this passage, and sometimes there are words of which you do not even know the meaning of. So I would write all those tones as well in that sheet, so that in the future, if I ever encounter those tones again, I know that what is the meaning of those words or anything like that. So I used to maintain notes for all of these 3 sections separately, even the minutest of things that might go wrong on the deed, so that when I'm revising it before the CAT, I know what to do and what not to do. But yes, before the 2 mocks, please do not go on to writing another mock until and unless you have analyzed the previous mock. Because I still remember initially when I started writing mocks, between the 2 mocks, I would tell myself that you don't have to do this. For example, if you're not sure about an answer in VRC, it's okay, just leave it for that moment. But then in the next mock, I'll again end up doing that mistake. So it used to take me like around 3 to 4 mocks to even get over that one mistake. That is why analysis is super important. And I have seen a lot of students, even last year, who would just, they would just write mock and they feel that analysis is not very important. Or even if they're doing analysis, what they'll do is they'll just solve the question once again and they'll call it analysis. I mean, analysis is solving those questions is just a very small part of analysis. Analysis is basically figuring out where you went wrong. Because sometimes we do get somehow emotional with the questions, like I have to solve this set in LRDI. How am I not able to solve this set? So that is one thing that you have to get out of your mind, because any day each and every question carries the same weightage of marks. So this is how analysis helps in all the 3 sections basically.
Right. So like you have mentioned, did you analyze each and every question and note down the learnings through all the 3 sections?
Yes, I used to do this. I mean, for RCs, I didn't really do that unless and until the learning is very specific that I might miss in the upcoming mocks. So for VRC, I still remember, apart from the word and their meanings, I didn't usually write much. But for LRDI and for QA, I used to write a lot. For example, there are certain shortcuts that are mentioned in just the mocks. I mean, you might be solving a lot of material, but you might not encounter those type of shortcuts which they give in mocks in the explanation part or even in the video explanation. So even while going through those explanations, I used to write those shortcuts. And again, what was the mistake that I did? For example, a lot of times I used to, when you're under pressure, 3 into 3 becomes 6. So you have to tell yourself that when such a question comes, please be ready to double check. So these
Been
are
there,
some,
done that, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So you have to focus on not repeating those mistakes, and that is what analysis exactly is.
Awesome, thank you. What about you, Anushka?
Yeah, so in my case, I started giving mocks pretty early on. And the first thing I did was I made an Excel sheet for myself. And it definitely had all the typical columns that you could think of, which is the section, the percentile, the score, blah, blah, blah. But I had this other column, which I think helped me a lot, which was this remarks column. And after every mock, I would essentially write down one comment for every section. So, and trust me, those comments were always, they weren't nice. I mean, at least not in the starting. And because what happened was when I was analyzing the mocks, I realized I'm not really learning anything. I'm making the same mistakes over and over and over again. And that was extremely frustrating. And I would take that out in those remarks. And I have that entire Excel sheet, and it's actually kind of fun to go through it once you're done with this entire set of mocks and your entire journey. But no, the bigger benefit of that is that you can actually go back and see how you've changed and how your scores have changed in the sense like, is there a trend? So it helps to identify those things. So that was one part of my analysis that, after analyzing the mock, I would kind of summarize that, okay, so this is where you went wrong in DILR. You spent too much time, or you didn't use proper shortcuts to get the questions, etc. Same for QM. And the second aspect of analysis for me was, like Anushika already mentioned, making that notebook. Because especially for LRDI, I think there were certain questions I probably never found anywhere else in any material. Because they are the kind of unconventional sets that these coaching centers will come up with for a particular mock. And the only way that you're ever going to understand how it was solved, and the only way you can prepare yourself to solve it in another mock, if it ever turns up, is if you analyze it correctly. So I would not write down the entire set for sure, but I would try and understand, okay, what was my takeaway from this set? So, if this is the kind of data I have, what is the best way to kind of, let's say, should I make a table? Should I make a chart? What should I do with it? So those things help. And another thing that helped when I was analyzing QA is that first, definitely the kind of shortcuts that Anushika mentioned. The second thing is that there are certain questions where even the shortest method is going to take you ages, and it's not worth the effort. And if I'm going to only get 3 marks by putting in that much effort, I might as well put in the effort in some, let's say 2 easier questions and get double the marks. So that is something I learned only after, giving quite a few mocks. As far as VRC analysis is concerned, I did not do it so thoroughly, because in my opinion, what happened is VRC is a very unpredictable section, right? So, a passage I can solve today with a particular mindset, I might not have the same answers tomorrow. There's a very high chance of that happening. So what I would do is I would see the answers that I've got wrong, and I would see if I was in a dilemma between the answer I picked and the actual correct answer. If I had a yes to that, it means I was on the right track. But if no, if the answer is something I probably struck out in the first round of elimination, or I never even considered, then that was a red flag for me, that why did I think on the wrong tangent. So those kind of questions I would analyze. But if I found a question where it was just a 50-50 chance and I just happened to pick the wrong one, I did not ponder over it too much, and I would just move on to the other questions. So yeah.
That really helps. And I believe all your bashful comments towards yourself finally helped you. That's pretty evident. Okay, awesome. So, apart from CAT prep, aspirants also generally are worried about their profile and if they can make it to the top D schools. We keep getting like comments in the live chat also that I have this much percentage in 10th, 12th, and graduation, and if I can make it to the XYZ B school. So, what is your opinion on this? How important it is to focus on profile improvement, and how should one go about it? Komal, let's start with you again.
Yeah. So even I get these doubts on my LinkedIn account, that my percentage is this, 10-12 percentage is this much, what college can I target? So I think that whatever has happened in past, whatever scores we have got in past, we cannot change it. So instead of focusing on that what we can do is, what a candidate should do is that they should focus on how they can score good in CAT. First, if they can score well, then I think they can think of good colleges, or what college they should target, or even what domain they should target. I saw a comment, someone was asking about what colleges to target for consulting. So I think that this is not the correct the thing that they should think now. Initially get good score, and then they can be in the right position to think about domain or the colleges that they can target. uh, Obviously the rankings of the college and other things are already available on internet, so they can look up for those things on them. Coming to my questions, how to build another profile. So for me, firstly, it is academic profile, which you cannot change much, because most of the people who are appearing, they are in their final year, or they are already done with their undergrad. So I think that academics cannot be changed much. It is what it is now, and we cannot alter it much. Secondly, extracurricular activities. So what they can, secondly, work experience. So if you are not working, if you're preparing for CAT, I think that uh, many people take gaps, but I think that managing CAT along with work experience is very much important, because work experience really counts. In many colleges there are extra weightage for specific amount of work experience. Thirdly, as I was saying, extracurricular activities. So you can take up various initiatives in your company as well. Like when I was working with Accenture, I was the host for events that were conducted in our campus. So these kind of small activities that can add to profile. And like I never did that for because I wanted to wanted that to be added to my profile. I did that out of interest. So when you talk about any extracurricular activity in your company, or in your college, or outside, anywhere outside, I think that it should be about experience. You should focus on improving yourself and not just building profile, because I never thought that I should do this because I want to build my profile. This is, according to me, it is not the correct strategy. What strategy for building profile? So what you can do is, you can work on your hobbies. The fourth thing is that you can explore more into your hobbies. If there are some hobbies that there are some things that we were passionate about, say painting or playing any sport. So you can take that up, and even being a part of any firm, you can play for that firm as well. Like we used to have inter-company competition, so you can play in that sports. So these kind of small things will not only help you grow, it will also help you build your profile. Also many people like they associate themselves with NGOs so that they can build their profile. But according to me, you should associate yourself with NGO if you find that that is the cause that you can link your personality to. If you find that that you are suitable for that, you find very strongly for that cause, then you can help that cause by joining an NGO. So these are the few steps I think that it will help build profile. But again, as I said, that don't do any profile building for just the sake of one point, because it is not going to help in long term. In long term, improving yourself via that profile will help you a lot.
Right. That really helps. Anushka and Anushika, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, so basically the day I decided to prepare for CAT and I approached several people, I have 60% in undergrad.
Right.
So that was something that a lot of people told me, that you might not be able to get into a good B school, and even if you get into a good B school, you might not be able to get a good placement, because 60% in grad is something which is just not good, because there will be a lot of people who come from IITs and ITs, and they will have a good percentage. But I feel that self-belief is something that is the key here. Focus on doing good in CAT. And even when you get into a B school, and if you're thinking that you might not be able to get a good summer placement, there are a lot of things that take place in the initial time when you enter the B school. There are a lot of corporate competitions where you can invest and build your profile. What this is the profile that actually matters. Because see, you might have a very good profile that might seem good to you, but what seems good to the B schools and the recruiters, that might be totally different. So first of all, I would say that initially just focus on scoring well in CAT, and once you have scored well in CAT, then focus on doing well in interviews. Because again, there are a lot of people who go for internships or jobs as soon as CAT ends, which hampers their interview preparation. So we do not have to undermine the interview stage, at least, because that is what helps you get into the B school. And once you are into the B school, there will be a lot of projects. Like we had a lot of projects, we had a lot of competitions, which helped us build our profile. And in fact, this was a major talking point in my Reckitt interview. One of the projects that I did in B school. In fact, no one even asked me till date that why I have 60% in graduation. So please just forget about the profile, at least about the academic profile, because that is something which you cannot really do anything about. Focus on building a profile in a sense that helps you grow as a person, as an individual, because this is what is going to help you at last.
That really helps. So to all the viewers, please focus on CAT, and what is done is done. And I would just say that try to do as much as you can and try to score as much as possible in your CAT exam. Anushka, would you like to add something to that?
Nothing much. I think I entirely agree with what Anushika said, especially about the fact that don't undermine yourself because you feel you're falling back on certain factors. Try to play on your strengths. Make that something that helps you stand out from the crowd. Because it's not just about B school. I mean, the admission interview, you can talk, even if it's summer placements for that matter. At the end of the day, you have to convince your the person sitting on the other side of the table that you deserve what you're sitting there for. So the person, the panelist is not so concerned about what you've done in your past. You might have the best credentials possible, but if they don't see that passion in your eyes, and if they don't see that hunger in you to actually get that opportunity, they're not going to select you. And that's something I figured out through these two sets of major interviews that I gave. One was the B school ones, and one is for my summer placements. So it's something that you have to understand, that you can't change things about yourself, but what you can do is try to impress people with what you are good at. So there's no point, pondering that, okay, I can't get this B school. Don't look at what you can't do, look at what you can do. So yeah, and as far as pursuing opportunities are concerned, like again, do it because you like it and not because you just want one more bullet point in your CV. Because you're not going to be able to justify it, and then it makes no sense. So yeah, and there's one thing I always stick to, which is that be the exception, don't be the rule. Just because somebody else couldn't get an opportunity with the credentials you had doesn't mean you can't either.
Right.
So you have to just believe in yourself and go with the flow.
Sure, be the exception. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. So my last question to you all is, I would want to know, how did it feel finally to convert your dream B schools, and how has it changed your life? Uh, let's start with Komal again.
Yeah. So I come from very humble background where girls are even at that time, girls were even skeptic to step out of their home and pursue their education and complete it. So it is really very big opportunity for me. I remember the day when I was rejected. I got rejection from IIM Ahmedabad. The next day I got rejection from JBIMS. I appeared for Maharashtra CET as well, and Jamnalal Bajaj. I was rejected in that college as well. And I remember it was very horrible feeling, but after 2 days I received a call from Bangalore, and after that I received a call from all the IIMs. So I felt very fortunate that I had a chance to have an interview at such a premium institutes of not only in these are premium institutes, not only Indian premium institutes, they are recognized worldwide. So I was very fortunate to interview for these institutes, and after converting IIM Bangalore, that is really the best thing that has happened in my life, and it has changed many things in me as a person. I've completed 1 year, so in college in IIM Bangalore, it has changed me as a person. I think it has upgraded me a lot. it has given me a platform where I would be able to, wherein I would be able to improve myself. And in long term, I would really look forward to improving the society wherein I come from, such as helping girls to get out and pursue their dreams. So it has changed me a lot, and it will in future give me a lot of power to help women. So it has been very great experience.
So glad to know that. That's awesome. Anushika, what has been your story?
Actually, it is sort of a coincidence that Komal and I come from a similar background. I mean, I still remember the day when I decided to appear for CAT. So I knew that if I have to pursue MBA, I have to get out of Kanpur. Now, leaving Kanpur for studies is something that girls don't really do here. So that was the point when I was told, I think you should, stick to the ground and not really dream of an impossible scenarios. Thankfully, my parents were super supportive. And I mean, I still remember I live in a very busy area. So there were times when, I didn't even used to get time to study during the day. So I would keep the nights for studying, to analyze mocks or even to appear for the mocks. So there were a lot of circumstances where I had to fight, to get into an institution which can actually give me quality education, because my academic background again was not that great that I could gain a lot from that. So the day I converted FMS Delhi, that was I still remember I was just jumping in joy, because I knew, okay, this is at least the beginning of something really good. And my parents were proud because, when you let a girl study, when you give her that independence, which not many people do. In fact, to be honest, I am the only girl in my society who has gone to such an extent to study or anything like that. And again, getting into FMS was a very good thing, but I still remember I won a corporate competition and then I got placed in Reckitt. Now the stipend and everything, that is something that was beyond my dreams, at least before I started preparing for CAT. I couldn't even think of getting placed in a company like this, or earning a stipend like this, or living in Delhi and exploring things, because Kanpur we just don't do that. After 6 you're not even allowed to go out. So that was a beginning of an entirely new life for me. And also I remember when I got into Reckitt and I told a few of my relatives, there were people who said that we want a daughter like you. So that feels really good, when you have actually inspired people to value a girl child, because it's not a general trend. You might see on social media, but the ground reality is totally opposite.
Right.
People don't really value girls. So that was an entirely new thing for me, and definitely the best chapter of my life.
That it feels so good. So proud of you. Anushka, and you are the youngest on the panel. And how does it feel to have achieved what you have at such a young age?
I think, to be very honest, for a very large part of my life, I was extremely underconfident. And even like throughout my CAT preparation, I always, like you mentioned, I just turned 21 a couple of months ago, in B school itself, and it was very difficult for me to imagine, how could I achieve something that people who have way more years of experience than me, they've worked in the corporate world, like how do I match up to them? I mean, it seemed almost impossible. And that kind of stayed with me even up till I gave CAT, and even after I gave CAT for that matter. I only gave CAT, I did not give any other exams because I was very hell-bent upon getting a certain B schools. And I think after my getting my scores, I felt that maybe I might have overestimated myself, maybe I was thinking beyond myself. But the day I converted IIM Calcutta, I think I remember told my parents that with this score I don't think I can get the top 3B schools. It's not gonna work out. We're going to sit for it next year again, and one more year of coaching and preparation and mocks and misery. But they so for some reason they really believed in me. They said that if you have the call, we trust you. We know you can do it. And the day I converted it, I felt I don't think I've ever been happier for being proven wrong. But more importantly, it made me believe in myself, and it made me believe that no matter what people say, if you really do put in the effort, you will get what you deserve. And I think that kind of stayed with me even throughout my B school journey of this 1 year. even for my summer placements, it was the exact same scenario. Like day one, I think every second person told me that, getting an investment banking role as a fresher, you don't have CFA, you don't have this, you don't have that, it's not going to happen. And I think somewhere down the line, I started making myself believe that. But, since I'd already started, I felt, why not take it till the end and then we'll see what happens. I mean, I'll get something. But yeah, things worked out. And more, I think these two incidents have really taught me one lesson, that sometimes even we don't know what we are capable of. And until and unless you give it a shot, you shouldn't let somebody, put you in boxes that, you can only do this. You are just 21. You can't, get a B school at this point. It won't help. You don't have work experience, this, that, blah, blah, blah. So you have to understand what you are capable of and just believe in yourself. Because if you put in the effort, there's definitely something good on the other side. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you, all three of you. So we have had ladies from different backgrounds who have done wonders in their career, and it feels so good to host you all today. And with that, it's a wrap for today. Thank you so much to all three of you for making out the time and joining me. I'm sure our discussion will help many CAT 22 aspirants. And to our viewers, thank you for watching us patiently till the end. Prepare hard, and as they say, bell the cat. All the best. Bye bye.